Jamie.
Hey.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Vejnesår. Jeg tror bare, det er fordi, at så er vi anderledes. Det er det samme, vi gør honør på en anden måde, end man gør i hæren. Vi gør sådan, de gør sådan. Don't ask me why. Det er bare sådan noget, man gør i hæren. Og så sidder man og tænker nogle gange, but why? Men da jeg så var med i hæren, så blev det lidt underligt, når alle andre sagde javel, og jeg sagde halløj. Men det er en marine ting. We're just talking about because she said hello when she came in, or kind of like hello. And we used to say that in the Marines instead of saying when we greeted in Danish, you say javel, and we said halløj because we're the Marines. We're different. So we're crazy people, but it didn't work. A lot of the bosses I had in the army, they looked at me strangely because I kept saying it because I was trained in the Marines. So we have to be strange some way, and I'm a strange person. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we all are.
And we are back, Dave. I hope you're having a great day in court. No, you didn't hear. Yeah, you did hear gibberish for the last week because you were in Sweden. We speak Danish, the best language in the world. No, it's but Dave, do you find that everyone you tried to communicate with spoke English in some sort of way? Not everyone is equally proficient at it, especially me. I could hardly talk like a toddler in the US, but our old exchange student's husband, he was so surprised when he arrived in Denmark and he tried to ask for something, and everyone spoke English. But for us, I believe now they start in like the second or third grade speaking English, and then they put German in there in the fifth grade or something like that. So a lot of tourists are kind of surprised that we speak English. And when I go around in Europe, it kind of surprises me how few people who speak English if you are in the part of the world where French is the main language. In Switzerland, a lot of people can't speak English. So I'm kind of buggered. So I have to watch the display to see how much I have to pay in stores. It's kind of weird. Yeah, but still, Danish and English, Swedish, it's kind of close because we spread our culture in the UK. So a lot of our words it's kind of like the English words. So if we slow it down and you use your hands, usually we can understand you. Yeah, this is an alibi stream because I need an alibi for what I just did. No, I just made some homemade burgers. Oh, that was great. I needed that. It's 8 o'clock my time now, so I really needed some food and some nice bacon cheeseburgers. That's great, and a lot of sriracha. So
what do you put on them?
Sriracha.
Is that it?
Like chili. No, I put. I don't put lettuce on. I put some shredded cabbages, different kinds of cabbages you can buy and pre-shredded in the store because it's good for you and it fills the stomach. And then just a patty and I don't use bacon. I use some kind of ham because there's not as much fat in it, but it tastes just as good.
What kind of cheese?
Just some non-specific. I'm not even sure it's cheese. Fedorowski, because in my opinion, both you and the Swedes are still Danish. So when I say the Danes, you're part of it. Give us our oil back. the Norwegians, they have a lot of oil fields and have made a lot of money. And in Denmark, the story is when they were drawing the lines on the map of who had which oil field, our foreign minister might have been a bit drunk. So he just accepted what the Norwegians draw on the map. So they made a lot of money on one drunken Dane. Well, it happens. Hey, Murphs Turfs. Hi, Irish. Hey, Sea Swept. Yeah, cabbages taste way better, and it's, as Murph Turf said, it gives some texture to it too. I'm learning Spanish now. I can say hola and sriracha. Someday I will be able to say Irish. Well, then change your name for my sake. Hey, Peach Peony and Salbert.
Hi, Paige. Hi,
Page
Sal.
M is here. Oh, all people. I'm just treading water because nothing is happening in court again.
Hey, Aunt. How are you?
But I don't know if no, you don't remember when we were at the dinner. Sometimes I would switch to English too to talk to Lena and her friend, because when it's not Lena but your wife's friend had a bit of a thicker Swedish accent, so it's hard for me to understand if she doesn't speak slowly. Oh my god. Almost on time.
Almost.
I'm not a big fan of lamb. If it's cooked right, but a lot of times it gets too dry. Hey, Danny T, and Atheist, and you were here in the beginning. Was ist los? Wir folgen eine. What's a court trial? Well, die Witness war der Erste am der Tatort. Yeah, but they don't understand anything, Mass. That's the problem. Either they should talk Danish or, well, they should just talk Danish. That's a pie with cream in it, not what you dirty, dirty people think about. I'm not missing the trial. It was on, and I'm not speaking bad Spanish. I'm butchering every language. Everything. My English is just as bad. Oh, I have to do this.
Lieutenant, before the lunch break, we were talking about the time frame where you walked up the basement stairs with the defendant and Sergeant Smith and went into the kitchen area. Do you remember that?
I do.
As you were walking up the basement stairs, I think you indicated that Sergeant Smith was first, the defendant was second, and you were behind the defendant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you make any observations? You indicated the defendant had her arms folded in front of her, correct?
That's correct.
Oh my
Did you
god.
observe her touch any walls or any items as she went up the stairs?
She did not.
Okay. In terms of the stairs themselves, did you make any other observations as the three of you were walking up the stairs?
I did. The defendant's socks were soaked in paint and blood,
Okay.
and they made some transfer marks up the staircase.
Up the basement staircase?
Hey, Flox, welcome.
Hi, Flux.
Hey, Luna.
If I could just show what we previously had on the screen.
Ghost is here. Wolfram.
You indicated that's the kitchen
Oh,
area.
I have to be
correct?
ready again if
That
they
is
show it.
And you sat there in those two seats that we're seeing with the defendant?
Yes.
And after you got to the stairs and you were in that seated position with her, did you have any conversation with her?
I did.
Can you describe that for the jury, please?
So after we had sat down, obviously it was a very difficult moment for Cara. Give her a minute, and I asked her if she could tell me what happened. Cara explained that she had come.
I don't
home
understand why he made a
shopping
YouTube
with
channel. He
Adriana.
loves being in other people's chats and
Noticed that
saying
the
inappropriate
kitchen door
things.
was open.
He does.
she came in the house.
Of course, atheist.
The only light in the house that was on was
Oh,
in the basement.
I believe I can.
She said she went to her and Anne-Marie's bedroom, only to realize that Anne-Marie was not in the bedroom. She said she then returned back to the kitchen area when Brianna had said to her, Mommy's in the basement.
Did she indicate to you when she initially entered that side door, what you call the kitchen door, to the home? You indicated she said that the only light on in the house was in the basement.
That's correct.
Did she say anything in regards to the basement door itself when she first entered the home?
No,
Do you remember?
she just said the door was open.
Okay,
I entered the home and went to the bedroom.
okay. And when you say the door is open, are you talking about the side door or the basement door?
I believe the basement door.
Okay. And so she was able to see a light, in other
That's
words?
correct.
Okay. And
That's what she was able to see.
Sustained, if you could just ask another question.
certainly, just to clarify that, she said she saw a light on in the basement, correct?
Told me the only light in the house that was on was in the basement.
Okay. And when she went to the bedroom and Anne was not
Smells
there,
like
she
I
got
forgot
back to
to
the kitchen
Put
area.
off the stove.
That's correct.
And that's when Brianna made this statement to her, Mommy's in the basement.
That's what she told me.
And did she indicate that, did she didn't do anything after Brianna made that statement to her?
She said at that point she grabbed Brianna and the dog and brought them to the next door neighbor's home.
Did she indicate where Brianna was when Brianna made the statement, Mommy's in the basement?
At the top of the stairs.
And that she took Brianna and the dog to the neighbor?
That's correct.
Did she indicate which neighbor?
I believe it's 20 Barton Street, Mr. Dupuy.
Did she indicate to you what she did after she took Brianna and the dog to the neighbor's house?
She said she had gone, then came back home and went down the stairs.
Okay. Did she indicate what she observed when she went into the basement?
She told me when she got to the basement, Anne-Marie was face down. I believe that's the prone position. And she pulled her up over her lap, and that's when we arrived.
Okay. So she indicated that when she first observed Anne Marie in the basement, she was face down.
Yes.
While you were seated at this kitchen table with her, did you have any additional conversation or receive any information from her about what had been happening earlier in the day?
Yes. She had indicated that they had been arguing all morning and since last night or the night prior via text message and telephone. At some point, it sounds like what she said to me was that Anne-Marie hung up on her and then wouldn't respond to any more text messages. It was essentially over an argument that they had about a gentleman named Mike that was over the house. Cara tried to indicate that there was nothing. There was basically nothing going on, and that Mike was just over there gossiping like a couple of schoolgirls. That's what she explained to me.
Oh, Mike.
Did she
So
indicate
the guy Mike.
where Anne was at this time? In other words, how they were having this phone conversation where Anne was located?
Yeah, Mike
She said
was
she
the guy
working
who was there the night
shift,
before.
the 11
They were
7
gossiping like
day
some
shift.
schoolgirls.
At the time that you had this conversation with the defendant, she gave you this information. How would you describe her demeanor?
I feel like she was pretty cool, calm, and collected at that point. Far less upset than she was downstairs, but still upset, obviously.
Now, you indicated at some point that it was you and Sergeant Smith that's the same, correct?
That is correct.
At some point, did anyone else arrive?
Yes.
And who was that?
Paramedic Gene Oz.
Okay. Were you familiar with him prior to March 29, 2010?
Yes.
In what capacity?
He also works as a paramedic with the town of Granby.
Okay, so had you been on calls with him?
Yes,
And were you still seated at the kitchen area with the defendant when he arrived?
I was.
Did you have any interaction with him at all or see him at the time of his arrival?
I just turned my back because I had my back turned towards the door. I basically turned to look and see who was coming in, and he went down the stairs.
Okay, so you saw him come in that side door to the residence?
That is correct.
And did you observe him going at least from your vantage point towards the basement?
Towards the
area?
basement, yes.
While you were seated at the table with the defendant, did you have any additional conversation with her? specifically related to the last time she saw Anna Marie alive?
Yes, I had. I had continued to talk to Cara regarding what had taken place and basically what they were arguing about, stuff like that. I had asked her if she can tell me the last time she actually spoke to Anne Marie alive.
And how did she answer that question?
Her initial response was sometime around Brianna's nap time, at which time she said that's between 2 and 4 p.m., I believe it was. I asked her if she could narrow it down for me. She said about 3 o'clock, I walked in, told Anne Marie that I was going to take Brianna shopping, and Anne Marie's response was, "Good, leave so I can get some sleep."
During that conversation, did she indicate anything to you in regards to Anne's sleeping or health at that point in time?
Yes.
What did she indicate?
She said that Anne Marie had been having some difficulty sleeping. She's been struggling with her asthma. The overnight shift was beating her down, as most people who have worked the overnight shift would know. It's not very good to you with regard to your sleep patterns. She was definitely struggling with her sleep.
Did she indicate whether that was impacting the relationship in any way?
Just that they continue to fight about it. Excuse me.
I have to say, they make it sound like it's nefarious to say, yeah, I told her I would go sleep, I would go shopping with my daughter so she could sleep, and she said, fine, just leave. I used to be a baker. I came home at around 11 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed, if my daughter was in daycare, I needed to at least try to get 4 hours in before I had to pick her up. If my ex-wife, before she left for work, wanted to talk, wanted to do anything, I said, could you please just leave me alone? I need some sleep, because I got maybe 2 hours at night before I had to go back to work. So, and if you're having that sleep cycle, you're not gonna say, oh, thank you, honey, it's so nice you can leave me alone so I can get my sleep. Thank you, Pooh. No, you're just gonna say, please leave me the F alone. I really need some sleep. And sleeping in the daytime is really hard.
Yeah.
It messes your body up. But she was a chef, so she normally went to work at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So she couldn't understand why I wasn't ready, because she was just getting ready to start her day. So, but they make it seem like it's so nefarious.
Like, can you believe her? Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
You indicated that you saw paramedic Oz
I
heading
need to
towards the basement
make my
at some
studio
point. Did you see
before
him come
I
back
do
up
that.
Yes.
or come from the basement area, I should say?
Yes.
And where did you see him, and what interaction, if anything, did you have with him at that point?
He came into the kitchen. My understanding is he had, a long-standing relationship with both parties. Cara and Anne Marie. So he came in and asked her if she was okay, and she had stated that she was, but that Anne Marie was dead.
Okay. Did you observe that conversation?
I did.
And was that in the kitchen area?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And at some point, did paramedic Oz take a seat in the kitchen area
He
at
did.
the table?
Yes.
Do you remember what seat
He sat where I was sitting.
Okay. And what did you do?
I just basically stood there.
In the same area? Okay. Now, were you able to overhear any conversation that paramedic Oz had with the defendant at the kitchen table?
Yes.
What did you hear?
Paramedic Oz essentially, was obviously concerned for her. He had asked her if again, like I said,
Sustained.
May we be seen at sidebar time?
But it's not letting anything get in. They are really, really fast with the objections.
I like her.
I like her a lot too. Yeah. Oh.
Is she the one doing it, or is it the guy? It's her, right?
I think it's her. Yeah.
Her name's Rosemary. She's just so awesome.
Well, I could use anything that people would be nice enough to make for me. I don't understand making graphics. I just made this today, and see how bad that is. but you all should go and follow MLS Law Show and maybe become a member over at his channel and help him get out of court so he doesn't annoy me in chat. But he can stream more, and I can do all the smexy talk in his streams.
Yeah.
So, but that's the abilities I have, but making graphics. So if anyone sends me anything, no, Sal. If anyone wants to send me some graphics I can use as an overlay, I have to be careful. Sal is in the chat. Then please do. My email is in the description on my page. So yeah, and especially when you work
watch
nights.
for Sorbert. He might send you something too.
No, but he just stands out on my porch outside and show it to me. It gets weird. There's a lot of old people living here, so but he's weird, and I just told them. Siri, you haven't missed much because they're having a sidebar right now because the defense is not letting anything in. No, it's you can find it in the about page. I believe my brokenbaker22@gmail. I believe is my official email. And it needs to be emailed because I can't download it from Twitter. Yeah, I could rival some of the peens Selbert have been showing us. You're asking questions I can't answer. Now I have to open it up to see what my own
You don't know
address
your
is.
own email is.
It's brokenbaker22@gmail.com. And Selbert, no, still, I'm pretty sure you have worked with the lighting and trimming of the bushes to make it go look bigger, but still, I'm not interested. No, thank you. Hopefully, I can figure out how to put it on. So, yeah, I can say that. So I can show how amazing you do things.
Oh, everybody. The way he sentences together, it is just priceless.
This one is my Hotmail is only used for my OnlyFans account.
Hotmail. I have a Hotmail.
I have a Hotmail. I've had it since 2001. And everyone, oh, you're still using Hotmail. Why not? I can remember that one. I have 4 and I can only remember one of them. And one of them is just my name.
I asked you if you overheard conversation between paramedic Oz and the defendant while seated, while they were seated at the kitchen table that you were sitting. Do you remember that?
Yes, I
Did you overhear that conversation?
did.
Can you please recount that conversation? And what you
I'm
were
not going to dox him.
So paramedic Oz asked Cara if Anne-Marie had been ill or if she was sick lately. Cara's response.
Why did the audio go away?
Struggling with her asthma. She had not been sleeping very well, and the only other issue she had was her double D boobs.
Did you,
Did you say she had problems with her double D boobs?
Oz of the defendant at that time or her responses?
What happened? What are they doing?
Hello. Welcome.
At some point, do you remember
Why did I change my...
I do.
And who was that person?
Paramedic Mike Pandora.
Were you familiar with him prior to that date as well through your work?
He also works with me.
Okay. And where did you originally see him?
He also entered the home when Gene, myself, and Karen were in the kitchen. He said he was gonna go to the basement.
Did you see what door he came in? If you know.
Came in the same door.
Okay. And did you see him head towards the basement area?
I didn't change anything on the sound.
Okay. Did you in
Just
fact go with him?
I did.
Oh,
That's
the showing the video?
And prior to you leaving
No,
the kitchen area, did you say anything in terms
maybe I
of,
should put it on.
Mr. Oz, Chairman Oz?
I was like, wait, what?
What did you say?
I asked him if he could stay with her in the kitchen and make sure she stayed there.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Now, can you tell us what happened? Did you go down to the basement with paramedic
I did.
Oz? I'm sorry, paramedic.
You come for the
Oz.
case, you stay for the.
And tell us
mayhem.
what happened on that occasion in the basement.
To my memory, paramedic Pandora went to the bottom of the stairs. He made his observation and we went right back up the stairs.
When you went back up the basement stairs, where did you go?
I stepped out that same side door that I came in to speak with Sergeant Smith.
Was he still outside during this whole time?
He was outside the entire time.
Okay. After, without getting into any content, did you have a conversation with Sergeant Smith?
I did,
After that conversation, did you re-enter the house?
I did,
Same door?
I did.
And where did you go?
I went back to the kitchen area.
And did you see anyone there at that period of
I
time?
did not.
What did you do next?
I then went to where I heard the voices coming from.
Where was that?
Down the hall, if you look just past the table there, down the hall, on your right, there's a bathroom. It sounded like it was coming from that particular area, and I headed that way from obviously the front door area. And as soon as I rounded the corner, they were coming out and entering the bedroom,
Okay.
which is all
It's the most
So you went down that hallway out of the
1991
kitchen
kitchen I
to the
ever
horses,
seen.
Correct?
correct.
And who did you see?
Paramedic Oz and Karen
Okay. And when you say, where were they coming out of
out
whenever
of
you
the
got to the hall?
out of the bathroom.
Okay. Did you have any conversation with either one of them at that point in time?
They entered, after they had already entered the bedroom. I would imagine it's Cara
Yeah.
and
This thing,
So just focusing on what rooms or what you observed the rooms to look
Yeah,
like.
this judge is also very
They had entered the
careful
far
so
bedroom
he
of the
didn't
residence.
doesn't get a mistrial or get struck down again.
I
Yeah.
asked Gene, what are you guys doing? He said she wanted to wash her hands. I said, did she wash her hands? He said, yes, she washed her hands and face.
Okay.
At that time, Cara reached and turned the bedroom light on and said, I just want to get Anne Marie's phone. At that point, I looked off to the right, I seen the cell phone flashing, there's like flashing green light on the cell phone. And I had instructed her that I don't want her to touch anything else, I just want her to go back to the kitchen.
Okay. And was she compliant with that?
She absolutely was, she said, I understand. At that point, she said, I understand, I'm the number one suspect.
At what point in time did she say, I understand, I'm the number one suspect?
When I asked her to go back to the kitchen and not touch anything.
And it was in response to that statement that she made that comment?
That's correct.
Did you respond to that in any way?
2010.
Well, it was just important that we find out what happened.
This is the fourth trial in the same case.
Going back to a moment, you said that whenever you were in the bedroom, the defendant said, I want to get Anne's phone, is that correct?
Correct.
And you saw a phone
I
in the
did see
bedroom?
him.
You want to display what's been marked as exhibit number 12 to the jurors to see, and if I could just ask you, Lieutenant, to please stand and use the pointer. Do you recognize what's depicted generally in this photograph?
I do.
What is that?
That's the cell phone that she was reaching for.
Okay, in the bedroom that you were in?
That's correct.
Okay, and I believe you indicated that you saw some form of a light on that
I
phone?
believe there was a green flashing light on it when I entered the room.
Okay. And the phone was not moved at the time frame that you were in that,
No,
correct?
it's not.
Okay, thank you. You can resume your seat. Thank you very much.
Or else in how many percent is it that it's always the person closest to you that's gonna kill you?
Yeah.
Son, can you come over here? Please and thank you.
After, I
Yeah.
believe you indicated, I'm sorry, was it as you were exiting the bedroom that the defendant made that statement that you indicated, I understand I'm the number one suspect?
Yes,
In the hallway area?
yes.
And where did you and her go at that point in time?
Back to the kitchen.
Okay.
Wolfram, if you haven't seen this, it's because it's the fourth time they're trying to get a conviction. The two first time they had a hung jury in 2012 and 13, I believe it was, or 13 and 14. In 2016, she got convicted, got life, but, and this is a big part of this case today, if you watch the first stream I did, they had a paint drying expert testifying about the time of death because he could watch how dry the paint was. That was struck down in the Supreme Court. Today, they had a motion, or they had a hearing before we started, instructing the prosecution they can't make the witness testify that it was fresh, wet paint. They wanted to sneak it in via layman that it was just spilled. And it was overturned because they were testifying to the freshness of the paint. And also they can't mention the color because it's some kind of sealing paint that changes color. It's pink when you apply it and then it turns white after some time. Those two elements were a big part, as far as I understand it, in the 2016 conviction. Those two elements were struck down by the Supreme Court. So the defense is really aggressive with their objections, and the judge is really careful, and they have been instructed they can't talk about fresh spilled paint. And did he talk for 5 minutes before there was an objection because he talked about the wet paint and how it was? He said something. It didn't even take him 5 minutes to get an objection because he crossed the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And have fun. Yeah, it was really great before. I have the booster on. If I take the booster off, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. When they go to sidebar, they put on white noise. When there's white noise, Lawn and Crim turns down the signal, and they didn't turn it all the way up. So I'm sorry, it's the best I can do.
At that point in time, did you have any idea how Anna Marie had died?
No.
Had you told the defendant that she was a suspect?
No, I did not.
Did you have any reason to suspect her of anything at that point?
No, I did not.
That's the way to do it.
Did you return specifically to the table area of the kitchen?
Yes.
Did you have any additional conversation or did Cara make any additional statements to you at that point in time?
Not to my recollection.
Do you remember having a conversation specifically about mac and cheese?
Yes.
And what do you remember?
Cara was incredibly worried about both Rihanna eating and also the dog getting some insulin in the food because he had a diabetic issue.
Okay. And did she make any specific requests regarding those two issues?
She said that she had some mac and cheese from Burger King in the car. She asked that Erin and Pandora, I believe, go get it and bring it to them.
Exactly, she's
Did
wet.
you
So
observe,
again, it
Cara
sounds
and
bad in
Pandora?
court,
If you did.
but
I just
Okay. Now, while you were back at the kitchen area and the kitchen table with the defendant, did you observe her using a cell phone?
I did.
And what observations did you make in that regard?
Cara made multiple phone calls. She called her parents.
exactly.
She called
Mm-hmm.
Anne Marie's parents, and I believe maybe Sailing, I'm not sure. She was on.
And that was from the kitchen table area?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, at some point, did members of another law enforcement agency arrive on scene?
Yes.
And who do you remember arriving that was not affiliated
They
specifically
put the
with
plug
Grand
back in
Rapids
so we can
Department?
hear the court.
State Police Detective Jamie McGarry.
Okay. Are you familiar, or were you
Who
familiar
said they
prior
say
to that date
Pandora?
with Trooper Jamie McGarry?
Not particularly. I
Okay.
knew who he was, but I never worked in a
It
case.
said they went to McDonald's, but then she
And
ended
you were familiar that he was a state police trooper?
That's correct.
Again,
What
without
for-
getting into.
He has
any
mac and
content,
cheese.
Did you have any form of conversation with him, or did other members at the scene have conversation with him? To your knowledge?
I'm unaware.
Okay,
I had not spoken to him.
okay. At some point after Trooper McGarrion arrived, was there a decision made about the doorway, the side doorway to the home?
There was.
And what was that decision?
We were asked,
Jackson. Surveys.
What he was asked?
Hey, Pixie, welcome.
Overruled.
Let me answer.
we were asked to exit the residence and re-enter the home through the front door. And we all exited and went through the front.
Do you remember who asked you to do that?
I don't remember if it was Trooper McGarrion or Sergeant Smith, one of the two took.
Okay,
I believe it was Detective McGarrion's decision, but I don't remember who told it.
okay. And was that done at that
Yes.
time?
Yes,
And so, did people that were in the house exit out of the side door area
yes,
and then re-enter the home? I think you might have said through the front door.
that's correct.
Okay, and what portion of the home does the front door lead into?
The living room.
Now, I know you indicated that you had been at the kitchen table with the defendant prior to this happening, that we just talked about, correct?
That's correct.
When, everyone exited the house, did she exit the house as well?
Yes,
Did she re-enter through the front door with everyone else?
yes.
Did you stay with her at that point in time?
For a period of time until Detective Fenn arrived.
Okay, and who is Detective Fenn?
She is a detective with the Granby Police Department.
Is her first name Barb?
Barbara Fenn.
Okay. And was she then, a person that stayed in the living room with the defendant?
For some time, yes.
Okay, and you walked,
We discussed this on, was it Monday? That how many times can you be convicted? And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer that, but it would be really interesting if, because the state has all the money and all the time.
Yep.
So they can just run you down if there's not, at some point, they say, well, you had 3 tries or something like that.
They
Right.
decide when they want to
That's
stop.
Yeah.
at some point, did you return to the living room area and have some additional conversation with the defendant there?
I did.
Do you know about how long you were gone, if you know?
I don't know specifically. It was long enough for her to change her clothing and sign some papers with the state police.
Okay. And you came back to the living room and spoke with her?
I did.
Do you remember if you were sitting or standing, if you know?
I don't recall specifically, but I think we were sitting down.
Okay. What do you remember was discussed during that conversation?
It was just very cordial conversation, basically about our children. We both have children named Brianna. Had some, casual conversation about children playing sports and just regular stuff.
Okay. Things not related to the
Not at
house
all.
that day, correct?
Not at all.
How would you describe the defendant's demeanor during the conversation that you were having about your personal lives?
Very relaxed.
Now, at some point, are you aware that ultimately everyone in the house vacated the home and the house was seized essentially, that no one else could go back into the house at some point?
Yes.
And are you aware that at some point after that, members of the state police took a video inside of the home
Yes,
and the exterior of the home?
that's correct.
And have you had the opportunity to view that
I
video?
had.
And is that video fairly and accurately?
Dave, you're a lawyer. How many times can you get a mistrial and still keep trying the same person? Is there a limit?
Yeah, is there a limit?
The way the portions of the home looked to you when you first observed them on the night of March 29th?
It did.
At this point, I would ask to play the video, which has been marked already as exhibit number 13, approximately 23 minutes late.
I just knew that when I watched that video and he said it, I thought, Farrell.
Mm-hmm. That was a good one, Farrell.
Oh, and Flox, you weren't here earlier. This is a lesbian couple, but both of them have male friends, one of which she kisses on the corner of the mouth. But if he would stand in line to pick up an iPad, she would give him a big smooch. At the same time, she was in a affair with another lady. So these are party people.
They're all over the place. And she had the guy had 3 credit cards he was paying for.
Yeah, she had
just
a guy.
So she would kiss him on the corner of the mouth.
Yeah, and for that he gave her 3 credit cards so she could improve her credit rating.
Yeah.
And then she wanted a dog, and he had to hide the dog purchase from his wife.
Oh yeah.
But then they never got the dog. So I thought this would be a case about drying paint, but it's about a lesbian throuble, quadruple, fifth trouble, whatever it is, because everyone has friends that they have fun with. But one of them is a corner kisser.
A corner mouth kisser. That's exactly how they described it, and it's just hilarious to me.
Well, I would yell at a guy who stood outside my house at 4:30. No, they do have a dog, but she wanted another dog that Mark is supposed to buy for her for 200. Mark is supposed to buy for her for 250, and he had to finagle some finances because his wife was already mad that she only knew about 2 of the credit cards he had given the victim. So yep. We thought this would be kind of a boring case, but the opening statement from the defense was really, really good.
And she's got some great hair and a great accent, so she's going to be fun to listen to.
But they had 2 hung juries. That's the thing.
Yeah, if it's a hung jury, I assume they can just keep going, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand why this house is so filled with clutter. And no, it's not because I believe women are innately born with an ability to keep a house clean, but I just cleaned my house today. But it's just a mess.
I hate clutter. Oh, yeah.
Mark needs 7K in credit charges.
Man, we all need a Mark in our life.
But are you a corner kisser?
No, I mean, that's where I draw the line. Maybe a hug.
Son, get on it. Sunburned.
I give a mean hug. So, and like a really good hug. So.
Yeah. You could give him a hug and a squeeze around the neck. He would like that. Not in a... yeah. You know me, C-Swip. I have all the racisms. That room looks nice. That's probably the guest room.
Well, I mean mean as in like great. That's how I use it. Not like mean, like angry mean.
A goldfish.
Aw. Who gets custody of the goldfish?
They're Red Sox fans. Doesn't matter.
I did not say
Hey, Natal. Long time no see. Well, if the better. Then you should watch the photos from the basement because they had a lot of stuff down there.
No. I didn't say mouth. Shame on you.
Remember when this was a big TV? No, you don't. You're too young.
No, that's like the first one I got when I like switched over from the giant 70-ton box TVs. And I thought it was just enormous.
Yeah. When you went above 20 inches.
Like, not so, yeah.
Well, it's normal to have a massive basement, but still, it looks like they just thrown everything down from the top of the stairs. I'm not saying my attic is looking specifically clean, but still, I put stuff to the side so Farrell can walk up and down the middle line of the attic and get her 10,000 steps in every night.
Yep.
Why are we watching the kids' room? Yeah, I got into that one night too, and just had it running while I fell asleep, and then I forgot to put the timer on my iPad. I woke up at 3 in the morning. They were still talking about this guy. That will be evening your time, but that's the night where he was in the shootout. Well, the kids' room is clean at least. She should have some Legos.
Oh, yeah.
and the docking station for the iPad on the 2010. No, not iPad, iPods. That would still have been a thing back then.
Oh, iPod. Oh.
No, but this
Did
was
you give
kind of
out free
different.
credit cards for her and not
Yeah.
tell your wife and pay for things?
I would say if my significant other gave another, in my case, it would be a man, 3 credit cards and paid their bills and allowed me to rack up 7K in debt. I'm pretty sure I would be having talks with my significant other about how good of an idea I thought that would be.
It's a little much.
The good thing that now you have fresh Legos to build at the next Lego stream. This is a murder trial. I'm not going to say anything about that's a big paddle in the bedroom. Yeah, corner kisses are okay, but credit card debt.
Yeah, it's a little much when you're paying somebody else's bills. One thing
And
to
a
say
Facebook
hi and give them a smooch on the side of the mouth, I guess. But you're paying their bills and
Yeah.
buying them things without your significant other knowing. That's a little odd.
As long as it's not you, then I can live with it. Because she was murdered sometime during the day. We're not quite sure. And she worked night as an EMT, so she had been in bed somewhere close to the time of her death.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah, but then stop crying every time I talk about him. If there's no corner kisses, I'm sorry, I won't swing for that.
We put the offer out there. No one's bought yet.
And how would Mrs. Flux like it if you came home with 3 credit cards and said, "Oh, don't worry, honey, it's just a friend from work. It's okay." Yeah, that's probably why they had a big paddle on the wall.
Yeah.
They were very much into canoeing or motorboating. I don't know what kind of maritime activities they had. Boston Beer World, maybe?
Well, I assume she probably could use those credit cards.
Yeah, but again, three credit cards, and you go away to another state to look at a dog. I'm pretty sure Mrs. Flux would probably be
And
looking
if you
at you. And
tell the person that you'll give them a full-on smooch if they bought you something, I feel like that's
yeah, and I'm not really sure that you should get another dog. We know what you do to dogs, Flux.
Yes, she's not allowed. I'm going to ban her from all animal shelters. Yeah. He said he'd rather spend the money on D-pics than to get a full smooch.
I don't like women.
Best clip ever.
I mean, whatever. Priorities. You like what you like.
And what's that? That's a 32-inch screen, and it's one of the thick flat screens. We talked about it the other day about old TVs, how big they were. And this is at least 20 inches, ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure who that says more about.
Not me. I'm not owning that one. I know what I'm about.
Oh, you have one of these TVs? Exactly. The kitchen is the most 1991 I ever seen. It's not brown enough to be an 80s museum. Look at that basement. It looks like they just throw everything down the stairs. Flux, the story is in 2010. We do the States story first.
Yeah.
These 2 girls have been married. They have a daughter together. Rocky roads ensue. They get a divorce. Both of them goes to court, claim the other one spousal abuse and everything, as you'd always do in a. It's not a paternity case.
Custody.
A custody case. So both of them claims the other person did something so they could get custody of the small daughter, 2-year-old daughter. But around Christmas time, as people do, they think, well, it wasn't that bad. So they get back together, and within 3 months, they realize, nope, we shouldn't do that. The victim works as an EMT night shift. She comes home. They get into an argument because her wife had her male friend over the night before. They are just platonic friends. So at some point, they get into an argument at around this place they are filming now. And the wife ends up at the bottom of the stairs, with severe head injuries and is strangled, is the prosecution's theory. Then the wife jumps into her car, drives around town, buying a little bits and pieces here and there to make herself an alibi. Comes home, pours paint all over the dead body, sits down, cradles the body, no, runs to the neighbors with the daughter and the dog and said, "Oh, something bad happened. Call the police," and runs back, sits down with the victim over her lap, and gets covered in paint and blood to hide the crime. Oh, and she tried to wash down some of the crime scene too and throw away some rags while at McDonald's. The police comes, it's clear as day she was the one that did it because they got into an argument. The defense had quite a different story. These two ladies were both having they're having the trouble. No one is denying that, but this lady had who's on trial, the defendant, had her male friend over. Anne Marie didn't like that. She got real angry, but Anne Marie did have Mark, her 3 credit card friend. He was her work buddy, and the defense also found out she had a girlfriend who also were kind of sus. Mark is owed 7K on the credit card bills, and he was not really fond about finding out that she was also sleeping, no, not sleeping around, corner kissing another woman. So he might have a motive. And then there was the corner kissing wife, girlfriend. When she was interrogated, she said, "I've been out running all day," but they found out she had a scheduled tanning salon visit, and at the crime scene, they found traces of tanning oil. So the defense would try to say all of this is one of her extra lovers who did it. And the prosecution will say she pushed her down the stairs and tried to cover it up by staging a break in and pouring paint all over her. In broad strokes, is what this case is about. They have tried 2 times where the jury, it was a hung jury, so she wasn't convicted. In 2016, she was convicted, but it was overturned in the Supreme Court because the paint drying expert didn't have the expertise to tell you how long the paint had been on their body. And that's why the judge is really keen to listen to the objections, because he doesn't want this being overturned one more time. So that's the 1,000-feet view for all you new viewers. And for those of you who weren't here this morning, go back and watch the defense opening statement. The defense attorney, she's a banger. That's how we spell SIAT in Danish.
Yep.
That's a part of the voir dire. Oh, you can see her feet. Oh, get
uh-oh.
off. Stupid fuck. Well, I'm sorry. I try not to show that picture.
Well, it's in Discord if anybody really wants to see it.
Yeah, but I try to, because this is an
Go
open
ahead,
channel,
Ellen.
and it can be not nice to look at pictures like that. We saw it a lot in the earlier stream. I'm not really fond of looking at dead people, especially because her eyes are open. But if you do like to see the body and stuff like that, join MLS's channel. It's in his Discord. It's not nice, but it's not as bloody as it could be if she had
No.
massive head injuries. I will say that for once.
But I was curious, like, what it looked like paint and stuff. So
Yeah, there's not a lot of blood.
no.
Yeah, it was overturned because of the lack of expertise from the expert. But they talked about it again today, that they are not, because they wanted the layman to say, well, it was just freshly poured paint. but the laymen are not allowed to talk about it. And the paint is the kind that's pink when you put it on, and then it turns white after a certain amount of time. They're not allowed to talk about that either. This is the first witness. He mentioned both things within 10 minutes of him starting his testimony that they're not allowed to mention. And the judge jumped on it as fast as possible. And it's clear that the prosecution really wants the witnesses to say it was wet paint, because that sounds like it's just spilled. And no more body on.
Is that still the
Yeah,
basement?
it was tossed. He's not allowed in. They won't bring in another paint expert.
Because it's ridiculous testimony.
Yeah. No, it's not the worst either picture or when I have been doing my layman duty I have seen either. But for people who are not really used to seeing not breathing people anymore, it can be kind of tough. And they kept it on screen for like 5 minutes this morning. So, and it's the open eyes that does it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And humidity, heat, does the blood do anything to it? There's so many variables to
The
testify
oil on
about.
your skin, like if the oil on our skin and stuff, like how do we don't know.
No, and he was testifying from watching pictures and what the paramedics said, how they experienced the pain.
Yeah.
Then he could tell the time frame at what time the murder must have occurred. She was in the prosecution claims she was in full rigor in this position, which should be put the timeline to at least 4 hours, and the defense argues that rigor can set in as soon as 2 hours. That's what the experts on Google says too. So there will probably be some experts talking about that.
Yeah.
Oh, a crock pot. I should tell the expert. He loves crock pots.
You have a lot of little knickknacks down there.
Yeah, and keep watching that picture with the open eyes for 5 minutes. Then it's different than just watching it for a glimpse.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a lot of shenanigans, yeah. No, but if they're saying she threw her down the stairs or she fell down the stairs and then they didn't have a fight down there.
I mean, like the way she's laying, though, I wanted to see like the way she was laying too, and like it seems like she was in that position because she's very perfect. I don't know. Well, we'll see how they say it. Because like if she fell down the stairs, I would think like
there should be blood all over the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, or she might be in like a weird position with her legs or something, like crunched up. I don't know. But then again, I don't know.
No, that's why we watch these trials, to let the evidence tell us what happens. Boom, 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 boom. If they want to go through 4 witnesses today, they better be fast on the last 3 ones. It's almost 3 o'clock, so they probably end at 4, no later than 5. Hopefully.
By 5, hopefully.
And this is just boring. Oh, there's some blood on the carpet.
Man, I just want to see the defense attorney and see how she does. I like her.
I don't believe they're gonna get through 3 more witnesses today.
With probably the delay and trying to get everybody in, they're probably gonna push through. Betcha.
Yeah, but still, the jury has to be able to function. You can't. They start at 7. No, they start at 9:30 this morning. So you can't run the jury to later than 6 because they have to. As as the defense, I will argue that they're too tired to concentrate. Yeah, it was off to the side, and it didn't look like much was disturbed right at the bottom. But the pictures we saw had the paramedic bag from the police lying there, so they could have moved stuff if stuff were there.
But
It'd be interesting to see the defense.
also she was holding her too, so she could have
She could have moved her, yeah.
her. Yeah.
That's more of a 2020 thing. Back in 2010, your team wasn't quite as side shaved and blue haired yet. And these were old ladies. They look like an old married couple.
They don't look. Well, I don't know.
No, Jiminy Cricket has gone. She scared him away.
He said, "Get the F out of here."
Okay, now it's 3 minutes without anything on the screen. But the thing about where she said, "Oh, I know I'm the suspect." Yeah, it sounds really bad, but again, everyone knows in not domestic, in any murder case, especially in your own home, they will look to your spouse. And it doesn't matter if your spouse is the same sex or the opposite sex. 75 to 80% will be one you know really well that of you. So that's why Son will recognize me just before I swing the hatchet. Oh, I shouldn't say that. So when they find his body, they could just rewatch this. I did mean it.
You can't hear the crickets. Please, what?
Yeah, I have no further questions. So we can witness.
Oh, cross.
They're out there having a ball.
Okay.
Thank you. Ken, is it fair to say that when you showed up at the crime scene, you were the most, were you the most senior person there initially?
Initially,
Yes.
I was the only person there.
Okay. And until, Trooper McGarry came, were you the most senior person there?
No, I was not.
Who was more senior than you?
Sergeant Smith.
Okay. And what was his rank and your rank back then?
I was patrolman, he was sergeant.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I was patrolman, he was sergeant.
Okay, so you were a patrolman back then.
That's correct.
And how many years had you been a patrolman up to the time that you, walked into the scene on March 29, 2010?
I believe 8.
Now, those 8 years, is it fair to say you've never responded to a homicide?
That's correct.
So this would have been the very first homicide that you've ever responded to in your 8 years of experience up until the day that you walked in. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is it also fair to say, sir, that when you got to the scene, let me ask you, did you do anything to protect the integrity of the crime scene before you entered the house?
I don't understand your question.
Sure. In other words, before you walked in the house, did you put any gloves on? Did you put any booties on? Did you do anything like that?
I didn't know I was responding to a crime scene.
Well, you knew it was a domestic, right?
That's correct.
That's a crime, right?
Not a crime scene until it becomes one.
Okay. So you get to the front door and it's open, right?
That's correct.
And you hear the screaming from downstairs, right?
That's correct.
And at that point, you
I
stop,
love that Flux
put
has such a
booties
strong
on,
gaydar. She's just
gloves
watching the
on,
back of her and say, "Oh,
start to protect the integrity
she's
of the
on my
crime
team."
scene. And is that because you've never responded to a homicide before this incident on the 29th of March?
No, that's because I've never done that at domestic home.
Okay. Now, sir, when you noticed that the front door was open and you walked into that the front side door, when you walked into the side door, and it was open, and you heard the yelling from downstairs. One of the first things you did was to go downstairs and try to figure out what was going on. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you got down to the bottom of the stairs, you saw Cara Rintala, and you saw her cradling, who you later came to believe was her wife. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And at that point in time, sir, when you went downstairs, you'd indicated, I think, on direct examination, that you, at that point, well, let me ask you this. Once you went downstairs and you realized that the victim was dead, did you do anything to search the house?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you do anything to speak to Cara Rintala about the door being opened and anything about the door being opened?
You mean while I was in the basement?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And once you understood that you couldn't render any aid to the victim in this case, did you go and search the rest of that house?
I did not.
Did you go to look to see if anyone was there?
I did not.
Did you go to look to see if anyone might have left through the front door?
I did not.
Did you look at any of the bedrooms?
I did not.
I don't know what
Did
time.
you look at any part of the house?
I stayed with Cara.
Okay. And you stayed with Cara because you heard it was a domestic, right?
That's correct.
And when you were downstairs, and you determined that you couldn't render any aid to the victim at this point, when you asked Cara to get out from underneath her wife's body, she didn't refuse to do that, is that right? She was cooperative with you, right?
Absolutely.
And when she told you she needed a little bit of assistance, you provided that assistance, is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. And when you provided that assistance, she followed your instructions, right?
That's correct.
Didn't try to run away, right?
No.
Didn't try to run out of the house, right? And you asked her to not touch anything, right?
That's correct.
And she complied with that by folding her arms, right?
That's correct.
Because that's what you told her to do, not touch anything on the way up the stairs, right?
That's correct.
And then you directed her to the kitchen, is that right?
That is correct.
And when you directed her to the kitchen, she sat there, right?
That's correct.
And she answered all of your questions, right?
Yes, she did.
She didn't refuse to answer a single question, is that right?
No, she did not.
And she didn't ask to talk to a lawyer, right?
No, she did not.
She sat there and she answered your questions because she was assisting in your investigation at that point. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say.
And you considered her a suspect because of the domestic, right?
I never referred to her as a suspect.
No, you never referred to her as a suspect, but you knew it was a domestic and you didn't leave her side, right?
She was upset. That's what I was there for.
Or you were there to calm her down, not to do your job?
Excuse me.
Objection.
I'll rephrase that. So you said you were there to assist her, is that right?
Used to that.
So were you there to assist her, sir?
I was there because I was called there,
On a domestic?
and I was instructed by my supervisor to stay with her. That's correct.
Because somebody thought she was a suspect, right?
Nobody said she was a suspect.
I didn't say you said it, sir. That wasn't my question.
I never said she was a suspect, and I didn't think she was a suspect. I didn't even know it was a murder.
Well, when you saw the dead body, you knew it was a murder, right?
No, I did not.
Okay. So when you saw the dead body, sir, and you were instructed by your supervisor to stay with Cara Rintala, at that point, sir, you know that there's something going on, right?
There was something going on.
Okay. And at that point, sir, when you know that there's something going on, you don't leave Cara's side. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you indicated on direct examination that she made some phone calls. She didn't just make the phone calls, she asked to make the phone calls, right? She didn't just pick up her phone and start dialing, right?
No.
She asked for permission before she even picked up the phone, right?
That's correct.
And she didn't try to hide her phone from you, right?
No.
She made the phone calls in your presence, right?
That's correct.
She didn't ask to step outside, she didn't ask to be alone, she didn't ask to go anywhere. She sat at the table after she got permission and she made the phone calls, is that right?
That is right.
And she called her mother, you said maybe her parents in some way, and Ann's parents.
I believe so.
And you think there might have been somebody else that she called, but you weren't listening to that intently, so you don't know, right? And all of those conversations that she had at the kitchen table, is that right?
Correct.
While
You
she
can say
was
it, I can't.
not walking around the crime scene because you were told to stay with her, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you were gonna stay with her until somebody relieved you, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in your mind at that point, you'd known about the domestic, right?
Yes.
And you were instructed to stay with her, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, when you said on direct examination, you indicated that when there was this conversation with Cara Rintala about any medical conditions that her wife may have had, you were asked questions about what you remembered. And one of the things you said was that Cara responded something like, only her double D boobs. You remember that?
Yes,
That's not all she said, right?
that's not all.
Okay, she actually said that beyond the asthma and the overnight stuff, the only other issue she was having was her double D boobs causing her difficulty sleeping, right?
Oh, that's quite a
But you didn't remember that on
different
direct
thing
examination, right?
than her double D boobs.
And then she was asked again about anything else about what she wants to share. And do you remember her sharing that Cara Rintala told you, or was sitting at the table, that her wife's double D boobs were causing her some difficulty breathing?
That's correct.
And that was in response to, are there any medical issues going on?
That's right.
All right, so it wasn't just talking about double D boobs, it was in relationship to whether or not they would have affected her medically. Is that right? Okay. Now,
That's shenanigans saying, oh, double D boobs. No, trouble sleeping because of a double D boobs. That's quite something else.
If anybody
we talked
knows,
about that side door that you were in and out. Before Trooper McGarrian got there, and do you know what time Trooper McGarrian got there?
I don't recall.
Was it hours? Was it minutes?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was there somebody who was keeping a log of people who were coming in and out of the crime scene?
Sergeant Smith.
Okay. And before you came here today, did you look at any log to determine what time people
No, I
came?
did not.
But there's a log that exists.
Yes.
That keeps track of who comes and goes from the crime scene,
She's
right?
with the victim.
Okay. And do you remember how many times before you were asked to use that front door, that you actually walked in and out that side door?
That I actually walked in and out?
Yes,
I believe it was.
you walked in and out twice.
That's correct.
What about other members that were there, other paramedics or police officers, first responders? You know how many times they used that door to walk in and out? Was every time the door was used to walk in and out noted on the log, to your knowledge?
I'm not sure.
Yes?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I didn't keep the log.
But you didn't review the log before you
No,
came
I
here
did not.
today? Okay. And do you remember seeing Gene Oss come through that side door?
I heard him come through the side door, yes.
You heard him, so you know at least he went in and out, right?
Correct.
And so he came in through the side door, he left through the side door, he came in again through the side door,
Well,
and went downstairs.
if they're nice
right?
enough, they can keep me up the most of
And-
the night.
oh my God.
Hey, Donati, long time no
I
see.
think you said on direct examination that shortly after you arrived, that Gene Ott arrived, is that right?
Shortly after I arrived,
Yes,
Sergeant Smith arrived.
okay, and then who arrived? After Sergeant Smith, who arrived?
Gene Oz.
Okay, and within a minute of when Sergeant Smith arrived, is that right?
No.
Was it a minute?
No.
I remember saying that it was a minute?
You talking about Gene Oz?
Yes.
No.
Okay, how many minutes between,
I don't recall, and it was quite some time.
it was? Approach the issue on
Next.
page 199. Sir, I'm going to ask you to read lines 20 to 25 to yourself, please.
I just love her look. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
It's so funny.
but the
Okay,
shoulder
Sean.
pads looks weird.
Yeah.
Does that refresh your memory as to when you testified previously and you were asked the same exact question about how soon Gene Ott arrived? You said you weren't exactly sure, but it wasn't that long. Did you say that, sir?
I didn't recall how long, but yes.
Wasn't that
It
long?
wasn't that long, correct.
But you just said a few minutes ago,
It wasn't a minute, yes.
you didn't say it wasn't a minute. You said it
Yes,
wasn't
I
that
did.
quick, is what
It
you
wasn't
said.
a minute,
Okay. But you said before it wasn't that long, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay. And when Oz wanted to go to the basement, you accompanied him, is that right?
That is not correct.
It's not, okay. So, at some point in time, Oz
Looks
comes
like
to the
a
same door that
husband's
everyone else is
jacket.
going in and out of, is that right?
But hopefully he has wider
He went to the
shoulders.
basement, is that right?
Correct.
He was back up within a very few seconds, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at that point in time, you're still in the kitchen with Cara Rintala, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And you stayed in the kitchen with Cara Rintala until paramedic Pandora arrived on the scene, is that right?
correct.
Okay. And when paramedic Pandora came
Hey
in,
Nick,
is it
hope
fair
you're
to
feeling
say
better.
that he wanted to go into the basement?
Yes,
And did you accompany him to the
I
basement?
did,
And did you see him walk down the stairs?
I did,
And did you hear him say, "I'm all set" at the bottom of the stairs?
yes.
And you never saw him go over to the body, is that right?
I didn't.
So he got to the bottom of the stairs, he said, "I'm all set," and then he walked back up, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you told us on direct examination that you were able to identify those footprints as yours. Do you remember that testimony?
I do,
Okay, and it indicated it was because there was a certain kind of boot that you use, is that right?
that is correct.
And that's the boot that you use as a police officer, is that right?
That's correct.
And did they have a specific name for the boots?
Now, those particular boots are Rockies.
Rockies. And is it fair to say, sir, that Rockies are used by many police officers,
Yes, there,
by many first responders,
yes,
many paramedics,
Yeah, I don't like
many
women.
firefighters?
correct.
Okay. And you told us, sir, that you were sure that those footprints that you talked about were yours, is that right?
That's correct.
Do you ever, sir, remember, with respect to those footprints, do you ever remember asking anyone to take your shoes?
I don't understand.
Well, you knew you had stepped in what you said was paint, right?
Correct.
Do you ever remember saying to anyone, "Hey, I may have contaminated the crime scene here. You might want to take my boots to see what's going on"? Did you say that, sir?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did you say that, sir?
What
I didn't ask anybody. to take
what objection could you have against
Did you
that?
do anything to preserve
know.
the bottom of your shoes, sir?
That was just stupid. But if you looked at him, he was just looking at the
And sir, you're not
table like
A
a
shoe print
lost
expert, is that
dog.
right? And I think you told us on direct examination, you knew that they were your shoes because your wife
Hey,
was mad at you when you
you're just
tracked stuff
talking
through the house,
boobs.
right?
Yes, and I see myself making the prints.
But you don't know what other people's boots look like making the prints, do you, sir?
No.
And if everyone's wearing the same boots, sir, you can't tell with any certainty that those are actually your boots. Is that right, sir?
I was the only one in the room making those prints at the time.
Well, you don't know that, sir.
Objection.
Why? Why?
I'll let him answer, so overruled.
Those were not there before I was there.
Okay, sir. So you made all of the prints downstairs.
To my knowledge, yes.
Well, but you don't know, sir. You're guessing, right? You're
Objection.
guessing that you made all the prints.
Hold on, sustained, at this point.
So, sir, when you say to your knowledge, it's possible somebody else made some prints there, isn't that right? One of the other responders?
Anything's possible.
Is that a yes, sir? It's possible somebody else made those prints.
Anything's possible.
Is that a yes, sir?
Anything's
Objection.
possible.
Sustained, that's the same.
Now, sir,
Yeah, she's gonna be feisty.
you also indicated on direct examination that you went over and you felt the carotid pulse of Anna Rintala, is that right?
Because there's a lot of shenanigans going
Did you
on.
have gloves on at the time, sir?
And she might be a
Why did you put
lesbian
the
who's
gloves on?
been married to a man for
Because
35
she had
years.
blood on
I
her.
didn't say why, when.
I'm assuming while I was standing there, keeping them in my pocket.
So you took your gloves out and you put them on, is that right? And then you leaned down and you tried to find a pulse, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
I love her. I just
Yeah.
love her.
You indicated on direct examination that she was stiff and cold, is that right?
Correct.
Now, sir, you don't have any training in detecting rigor mortis
No, you-
or anything like that, is that correct?
no.
Okay.
Come on, don't go slow
You'd
down.
agree, sir, that Anne-Marie Rintala weighed, well, let me just say this. She was a heavier woman, is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Okay. And
Look
when you assisted in getting Anne-Marie Rintala off of Cara Rintala's lap, you did that with the assistance of another officer, is that right?
Correct.
Who was wearing the same kind of boots you had on, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And sir, when you
It looked like Michael Chickness in
when
The
you said
Shield.
on
Amy, you're too young to know
direct
that show.
examination, you removed Cara, you brought her upstairs, you told her not to touch anything. She sat and made those phone calls. You also testified that at some point you see her in the bathroom, and you had learned that
Sean Bird, it's because the provider of the stream is messing around with the audio levels, and with I can hear them finagling with either some wires or something, because there's some electrical sounds coming, and then the chord sound goes up, and then you only hear one of the mics, and they had mic problems in the beginning of the day, so I have it boosted. I have done everything to keep it up, but don't clip that, Farrell.
Also, it
Um,
seems that when she got up there, he's just like all timid now, you know.
yeah, and
That could be it too.
yeah, but he was instructed earlier to talk into the mic, but after they went to a sidebar, the audio has just gone all the way to L.
she had
Yeah.
washed her hands and face, is that right? And she didn't do that without permission either, did she, sir?
No, she did not.
She asked for permission to go wash her face and hands, right?
Correct.
She didn't just get up and wash her face and hands, right?
Not that I'm aware of, I wasn't there.
But you know that she was in there in the company of another police officer who allowed her in the bathroom to wash her hands, right?
A paramedic.
Paramedic, who allowed her in the bathroom to wash her hands and to wash her face, right?
Correct.
And she didn't hide that from anyone, right?
No, she did not.
And she asked for permission, right?
I don't know, you'll have to ask him.
Well, she didn't get up, nobody stopped her, right?
Again, you'll have to ask him.
Did you ever hear anything in the course of this investigation that someone stopped Cara Rintala from going into the bathroom to wash her hands?
I hate when police officers are really going
You ever
when
hear that,
it's
sir?
prosecution and when it's the defense. Okay, that's I know.
Now, sir, You also mentioned on direct examination that at some point Cara Rintala changed her clothes, right?
That's correct.
That's because you guys asked her for her clothes and she voluntarily gave them to you, right?
I believe the state police did, yes.
Okay. So it wasn't a situation where she said, ha, let me go in the room and change my clothes, right?
That's correct.
John, if there's
So
a
you asked
break,
her
I
for her
will
clothes
do a
and she
resume.
cooperated and gave you the clothes, right?
I'll talk about the case.
She did give them her clothes, yes.
Okay. And then, sir, with respect to Trooper McGarion's arrival, whenever that was, sir, is it fair to say that he took over the investigation, he was in charge when he got there?
That is correct.
And is that because he had experience in investigating homicides?
That's who we used, yes.
Because they're the state police, right?
Correct.
And no one on your department, not just you, but nobody in your department had any experience investigating homicides. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
And there hadn't
Oh, no,
been a
no,
murder
no.
in Granby for 50 years before this, is that fair to say?
Probably fair to say.
Okay. And so when Detective
Wesley.
when Trooper McGarrion,
Hey, Wesley.
Detective Trooper McGarrion arrived, he took over, right?
That's correct.
And he's the one who made decisions about what should happen that night and where everyone went, is that right?
That's my knowledge, yes.
Okay. And when you were speaking with Cara Rintala that night at the kitchen table, She wasn't trying to hide the fact that she had this argument with Anne Marie the night before over a male guest that was at her house, right?
Not at all.
She didn't try to hide that not once, right?
No, she did not.
Okay. And she didn't do anything to try to hide her phone, right? In fact, she gave you her phone, right? She gave the phone
You
over
asked
in the
me earlier.
investigation?
I believe she had.
Okay.
Hey,
And that was
Chrissy.
voluntarily, right?
I would imagine, yes.
Okay. And she also gave permission to search the house, right?
Yes.
She wasn't looking for anyone to go get a search warrant. She just said, do it,
You
search the
can
house,
need
right?
a cross if
Because she
I
was
remember
cooperating in
my-
the investigation.
there were Brooks law and stuff, correct?
I don't have any further.
Cross.
Lieutenant, I just want to follow up on your testimony regarding your rocky boots and the boot prints that we observed in the photograph. Now, I believe you indicated that you had stepped through paint.
That is correct.
Okay, and were you aware that you were stepping through paint at the time you were stepping through paint?
At that particular time, not,
Okay,
not until I
okay. And how did you become aware that you had stepped through paint?
because I left footprints.
Okay, and how do you know that
You were
you left those
standing
footprints?
standing in a puddle of paint trying to pry a dead body
What do you
of
mean by that?
another woman, and you weren't aware.
Each step I made a print.
Okay.
Right.
Does that include the
That's
prints
just
that we're
stupid.
seeing here on exhibit number 6 that you indicated were around Anne Marie's right hand?
By her hand in her head, yes, that would be me.
Okay, and you watched yourself make those?
I did.
Okay. I know you indicated that you didn't ask anyone to take your shoes. Do you remember if anyone did take your
I
shoes?
do believe the state police took my shoes.
Okay, so you didn't ask anyone to take them,
No, I did not.
but they did take them.
I believe that it did.
So just to clarify in regards to the initial dispatch, I believe you testified that the dispatch was for a possible domestic disturbance, correct?
Correct.
And that it's, in addition to those 3 words, you received information that there was a man in a basement, correct?
Correct.
When you arrived on scene at 18 Barton Street, was there a man in the basement?
No, there was not.
Okay.
Did you
And-
look?
And based on that, you determined that you had
You
received
said you
at least
didn't
in
look.
part some
I know.
Because it was a domestic.
I believe you testified previously that when you came upon Anne, and even when you went upstairs, you did not know how she had been killed, correct?
That is correct.
Did that change at all?
hate
the
it when
entire
it's the
time you were there
invisible
that
man
night?
who's the
In other
killer.
words, did you ever know why you were, as you were there that night, how
Only
Anne was
just.
killed?
I had no idea.
And when I asked that, I'm asking, did you even know it was a homicide?
I did not.
Okay, so it could have been medical,
That's correct.
could have been natural,
That's correct.
should have fell on the stairs.
That's correct.
And I believe you indicated with defense counsel that you were instructed, I believe you said by your supervisor, to stay with the defendant, is that correct? Is that Sergeant Smith?
Yes.
Okay. And if there had been any other adults in the house at that time besides the defendant, would they have been allowed by you or your department to walk around the house?
Objection.
Overruled.
No, there was not.
So that would have applied to anyone that would have been in the house at that time.
That's correct.
When we get a break, I'll recap because there's a few people who are sifting in who haven't been here. So just waiting for a break.
In terms of who is responsible for the investigation in this case, it was not the Granby Police Department, correct?
Correct.
It was the State Police Detective Unit,
That's correct.
and once they were on scene, it was essentially their case to investigate.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions now.
Leave the photo. Sir,
Yes.
remember telling us when you were first, when I approached the
You may.
thank you. Remember telling us when you first came downstairs that you walked around this way and up here where all these prints are? Remember telling us that?
Yes, that bag wasn't there.
Right, so you walked around, so you walked down the stairs, around here and all the
A
way.
little
to-
behind.
right?
Thank you. This
Some
bag
like
was-
little behind,
Right.
some like large behind.
Okay, and so you went from the stairs this way,
Stairs.
without the bag,
Stairs.
this way,
That's correct.
all the way to right here, is that right?
Correct.
And it's your testimony, even though you don't have any scientific training, that these are your prints, is that right?
Objection in the form.
Staying as to the form, if you can just ask the question.
Sure.
without the Scientific training part.
Sure, Judge. And your testimony, these are your prints, right?
Massachusetts,
That is my belief.
Shelley.
You don't know that, you believe that, right? Okay. So- I guess
So they got that accent. She does at least. I love it.
you can go in that direction.
I don't know, they're not the same.
No,
There's two different
Massachusetts,
sets of prints now.
I couldn't be-
not Minnesota.
Okay, so now we've established that there's two different sets of footprints in that cellar. Is that right, sir?
And
I don't know
now,
those to be prints.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, but this, may I approach again, Judge?
You may.
This right here isn't your footprint, right?
That's correct.
And you don't know that to be
hey,
a
Hal,
footprint.
Ati,
You were saying here and here.
This is not your footprint, is that right, sir? That's
I would not.
somebody else's footprint.
I would not think that's my print.
And that's somebody else who had the same type of shoes that you had, is that
That
right?
would be correct.
And do you know whether or not anyone investigated this footprint?
I don't know.
Okay. And then, sir, do you know whether or not when the body was removed, if there were any footprints underneath Ann Rintala?
I have no idea.
But you only know, according to you, that these prints up here are yours, is that right?
That's correct.
And all these over here, did you walk in this direction too?
That's how I pulled it.
That's how you rolled her?
That's correct.
Okay, so when you're standing, you said you took this part of her arm, is that right?
That's correct.
And your footprint would be all the way over here?
Yes. I
To
had-
pull her.
Correct.
Okay. And then, sir, there appears to be a footprint here. You know who made that footprint?
I don't know. That could be me. I
Okay.
don't know exactly where I was standing at the time.
But did anyone ever ask you to retrace your steps
No.
in the basement that night so that somebody could determine what prints may have been yours and what prints may have been somebody else's?
No.
Did anyone ask you to go downstairs and say, tell us exactly where you went that night? How did you get around the body? Did anyone say that?
No.
No further question. Okay.
Okay, you step down, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Shelley, there was a guy in this trial named Mark.
Mark Smith, please.
This is a different one. Okay. And she says,
Okay.
Mark, the whole time. So, oh, I love it. I'm in love.
they're just gonna call the next witness. There's a few new people here. This trial is about. It's the fourth time this lady is on the stand. 2 times she had a hung jury, then she was convicted, then the Supreme Court threw the conviction away because they had a paint drying expert who they couldn't prove his expertise in paint drying. So this is the 4th time, and the prosecution really wants to talk about how dry the paint was when people arrived at the scene, what color it was. And the defense really want to talk about that the defendant had a male friend over the night before because it was a lesbian couple, and the victim had a male work buddy / corner kisser / paying her bills friend who also kept it secret from his wife that she ran up $7,000 of debt on his credit cards. And while she was corner kissing with this man, she had a girlfriend as well. So it's all the craziness. And on top of all of it, they have a Massachusetts accent.
Shelley wanted to know what corner kissing meant. They specifically said corner kiss.
It's the suspect fleeing the scene. You can see him in the top.
Oh my God.
The invisible man after stepping in paint.
They
So,
said
yeah.
corner kissing of the mouth, like a corner mouth kiss. That's what they kept saying. So that's what Baker's referring to. Anyways.
Yeah, Jung
Keep
Min, he wasn't allowed to kiss her because they were not. He had said he loved her, but we don't know what she answered. We just know she used his credit card to run up $7,000 in debt. And she wanted him to buy her a dog, which got him in a bit of trouble because his wife found out that he had given her 2 credit cards. He gave her 3. But so he had to finagle some finances, but they never got the dog. She did promise him if he would stand in line and wait for an iPad for her, she would allow him to kiss him a big kiss on the lips while she was unfaithful to him and her wife with a second girlfriend. This case could be all the fun.
Could be. Make yourself big and put up the board again for C-Swept. She wants a screenshot.
It's just, you can clearly see the suspect is fleeing there. This is the paint, and you can see him running away. For those of you who are new here, sometimes when I get bored, I draw really bad drawings, and some people like them. Nobody died. Yes, the person who ran up the $7,000 debt on a married man's credit card was unalived in the basement. If you go back and see the morning stream, you can see pictures of her. I don't recommend it. Or if you join MLS Law Show's channel, you can go into his Discord. Pictures are in there. I believe you are already, but I'm not sure. They're not nice, but it's not as gruesome as in some cases. So, yeah, you can see his halo. I can see your halo. So, hey,
Yeah,
Dirk.
they're introducing a lot of extra characters because the state's opening statement was basically like, she did this, then drove around the block trying to create an alibi, went and disposed of some things in a trash bin at McDonald's, called her wife a million times to make it look like she was trying to get a hold of her, that type of thing. So
Yeah, but she didn't pick up the phone for 2 hours, so she did it.
yeah.
And Flux, you don't steal, you copy. And copy is the greatest flatter I can get. If someone as great as you can do it, I'm happy.
Aww.
Yeah, I
Aww.
meet the nicest people online.
Flux is amazing.
Yeah, and there was a lot of arguing about this. She threw away some rags, but she had a 2-year-old. The defense claims she had an accident in the car. Anyone who has stood with poo-covered rags and a diaper near a trash container, they have probably thrown all of that away. You don't pack it up and take it home if there's poo on it. So it's believable they would take it away. And to all of the people who said it looks like a theater, look at all these massive windows they have. So I'm happy they put up the blinds so we can watch the trial. But Jung, what does the defendant have now? We don't know how the defense, because the big thing right now is the rigor mortis, because the prosecution says you can't have full rigor until 4 hours, and according to Google and the defense, you can have it in 2 hours. So that's kind of the timeline thing, because they wanna push it back. She has an alibi for around 2 or 3 hours.
I think she said 3:00 was the last time she seen her. About 3:00.
Yeah, and she came home around 6, 7
or something, like around 7.
Yeah. So there's a window of 3 to 5 hours. But she has been around shops, and because she didn't buy anything significant, she's guilty. It's this usual prosecution shenanigans that everything you say, everything you do is the wrong thing to say and do. And you could see it. This defense lady is really onto her game, and the only thing medical wrong with her were her double D boobs. No, the only thing wrong with her double D boobs was she couldn't sleep because of them. That's a totally different sentence.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Old line read, don't forget that when she was unalived, Mock, the credit card giver, creepily decided to sleep in Anne Marie's sleeping bag at the fire station. That was a weird
Yeah.
fact to have in there too, that thing.
Yeah, after her death. Well, when we did that, when I was in the service, we called it regulating our salary. Yeah, and again, you can't prove anything from rigor because what's the conditions? That's but again, their biggest claim in the third trial, which allegedly led to her conviction, was they could, by looking at pictures and paint drying expert could say, this is the exact timeline when she must have died. That testimony is thrown out. They won't bring in a new paint drying expert, but they will try and have every police officer and EMT say, well, it was really fresh paint. They're not allowed to say fresh, so they're going to say wet paint. And there was no, what would you say, sheen on top of it, skin on top of it. So it was really, really, really wet. But let's go back to it. And I'm going to water the lilies.
Hang on, you don't have anything on the screen. It's just you. Baker! Oh, God.
Did you say something?
Yeah, I said it's just you on the screen. So.
Well, why don't you put the things up on screen? I didn't want to go big.
I thought you were leaving.
But when the ladies ask for me to go big, I'll go big.
Yeah.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence which you shall give to the court and jury in the case now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God or do you so.
May I proceed, Your Honor? You may. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name for us?
Good afternoon, my name is Mark Smith.
Ma'am, come on.
SMIT.
Get over
What do
here.
you currently do for work, sir?
I'm the chief of police in the town of North Brookfield, Massachusetts.
How long have you been the chief there?
Going on 8 years.
Can you give us a sense of what size department, what type of department that is?
It's a smaller department, I mean, a total of 7 full-timers.
How many folks in town?
A little over 4,000, about 4,500 in that area.
Now, you've been the chief there since 2015, is that right?
Yes,
And where were you employed before that?
I was chief of police in the town of Hinsdale in western Massachusetts for about 1.25 years.
And prior to that?
I was a police officer in the town of Granby for just about 19 years.
So all told, sir, how many years of experience in law enforcement do you have?
I'm going on 28 years.
Now, how does the town you're currently chief in compare in size to Granby?
Department-wise, about half the size. People-wise, Granby was about 6,200. I think we're about 4,500. So,
And let's go back a little bit and tell us how it was you came to be employed in law enforcement. What was your education, training, and experience?
it started when I was interviewed by the Granby Police Department, and from there I was lucky to be chosen to go to the part-time academy. From there, I went to the part-time academy and spent 4 years as a part-timer on the department. And just after that time, I was lucky enough to become a full-time police officer, to which at that point I attended the full-time police academy.
And in going through the full-time, even the part-time and full-time academy, did any of your training involve first responder training or first aid training?
Yes,
Please describe that for the jury.
in both the Reserve Academy as well as the full-time academy, to be a police officer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you have to have first responder training. And that training includes a portion of CPR training and also basic first aid techniques and stuff that we use in the field to handle emergencies that we come across.
And what type of equipment or medical supplies or devices does that training involve?
With the CPR, it's we have the AED that we carry, and then we're talking equipment, sir.
Yes, equipment and or supplies.
And the supplies that we carry, it's a jump bag, it has oxygen in it, it has all kinds of bandages, anything for basic life support that we can do in the field.
Now, when you became a full-time member of the Granby Police Department, describe to the jury what your duties, ranks, and assignments consisted of during years.
When I first became a full-timer, I was the first full-time school resource officer in the department, so I spent 3 years doing that. From that position, I moved into being a full-time detective position for the next 3 years, and then shortly after that, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant.
And what did your duties consist of as a sergeant compared to a patrol officer?
When I became a sergeant, I worked days during the week, so my responsibility was to supervise the detective bureau as well as school resource officer. And I worked along with the chief during that time. So during the day, the day-to-day operations when I was on duty was under my supervision.
At the time you were a sergeant, did you come to know or supervise a patrol officer by the name of Gary Kohler?
Yes.
Mark.
And is that the same Gary Kohler who was just testifying before you?
Yes.
And am I correct, he's risen to the rank of lieutenant nowadays, am I right?
Yes.
Back in 2010, am I right, he was a patrol officer at that time?
Yes.
And you were a sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during your time in law enforcement, not just in Granby, but do you have experience responding to death scenes?
I do.
And could you please give us some sense of what experience you have in that field?
I've responded to numerous natural cause. A lot of those, unfortunately, respond to car accidents, so on and so forth.
And have
Oh.
you seen deceased individuals in various stages of death, so to speak?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Now, sir, I'd like to direct your attention specifically to the evening of March
that good.
29th, 2010, around 7:12 p.m. or so, give or take. Do you recall if you were working that evening?
I was.
And at some point, did you receive a call or a dispatch of
Wow.
an incident in Granby?
I did.
Can you please describe to the jury where you were and what you remember hearing?
Phenomenal.
I was on cruise
Oh,
patrol
my
in the town, and the dispatcher notified me to respond to matters in town for a disturbance.
And do you recall any additional information or specifics or descriptions about what the nature of this call might be that you were going to?
It was described to me as a possible domestic.
And when you heard possible domestic, based upon your training and experience, what images or what concepts were going through your head at that point?
Objection.
Well, if I could rephrase it. Okay. What did you understand that to mean?
Objection.
Cases?
Relevant.
Overruled.
What did you understand that term to mean, sir?
Some kind of disturbance generally.
And when you say generally, what do you mean?
It could be, there's a lot of things when we get dispatched to that type of call.
Sorry, Dirk. The wet paint argument is because it could establish a timeline that could put Cara at the scene of the crime.
Mhm.
Before or after the murder
Well, their
happened.
claim is it was poured.
Right
It was
before.
poured on her, and it was like 30 to 45 minutes before 911 was called.
Yeah,
Or shot.
and how she could do that, because she didn't call 911. She took her kid and her dog, ran to a neighbor's house and said something happened in the basement, call 911, and ran back, and they found her with her wife in her lap, sitting, touching her, stroking her, and they wanted to say that she went to the neighbor's house, called 911, made him call 911, poured the paint over her, and because it was, they could even tell it was poured paint, not spilled paint.
Mhm.
So that's why they really want to have the paint in to establish a timeline, and that she poured the paint to hide the evidence. But again, as the defense said in their opening, she lived in the house. Her DNA would be everywhere. And
Yes.
they talked about she had tried to clean up the blood, but why then pour paint over it later? Because the victim was in the basement, so the blood should be in the basement. It doesn't really make sense, but hopefully
And
we'll find out.
Just also, just to make it clear with everybody, like when you walk in their front door, the basement is literally right. There's like a little bit of a landing, and then it's right there. So she didn't
Yeah.
have. It wasn't too far into the house. when you like
She was
go in the
strangled.
But we take into consideration, could it be a verbal disturbance? Absolutely. Could it be a physical disturbance? Absolutely. It's until we get there, we don't know. We just know there's some kind of disturbance within generally a household between usually family members or people that live together.
Is it necessarily between two married folks?
It can be, yes, it can be, but it can also just be people that live or reside in the same residence.
If two siblings were arguing or fighting, would that be considered a possible domestic?
Yes,
Or a niece and aunt,
yes,
basically amongst family members or household members?
yes,
And you said it could be physical, could be verbal, could be some combination of the two?
correct.
All right. So were you given a particular address or area of town to respond to?
Yes,
And what was that?
18 Barton.
Now, when you heard 18 Barton, just over the dispatch, did you immediately know, or did you eventually come to learn whose house that was?
I knew those residents it was.
Okay. And who did you know it to be?
It was Cara and Marie Rintala.
And when you say Cara and Anne Marie Rintala, am I correct that Cara Rintala is the same person here in court, dressed in pink?
Yes,
Okay. How did you know that was Cara and Anne Marie's house?
Judge, you're on.
Yeah. How does everyone know who they are? I know she was in EMT and stuff like that, but
Well, was Kara a firefighter? Was that?
I'm
what I
not
was-
sure if
I'm not really-
if they both were EMTs.
Yeah.
How do
Sounds
I-
like it sounds like they both did that job. So maybe that's why people knew him. It was a small town.
Yeah, might be.
Sir, prior to this evening, how were you familiar with Cara and Anne Rintala?
we first met, we had an accident on the street. That, both of them.
Oh, okay. See, thank God we have Farrell around. She said they're both EMTs. The first
Yeah,
guy
they
said
help.
Did you have any other additional familiarity or
They
knowledge?
help with
of Anne and Cara Rintala?
Yeah.
where you put something in the
We
throat.
had service in town, so I had the opportunity to work with them from time to time.
Now, do you recall approximately how long it took you to respond to 18 Barton Street from when you first heard the dispatch?
I'm just saying approximately a minute or so.
Yeah,
And
probably.
was any other member of your department already on scene when you got there?
Yes,
Who was that?
at the time it was Officer Bowman.
How did you know it was Gary Kohler?
We were the only two that were on duty. We then heard a call out over the radio.
What does calling out of the radio mean?
He said he's arrived at a location.
So you knew prior to arriving that he had gotten there first.
Yes.
So describe for us what you did when you got there, where you went, what you saw.
I pulled in, I parked behind Officer Bowman's cruiser at the time, and I went in to enter the residence.
Which, how did you get into the house?
I went through the door that's on the side of the house that faces the garage. I opened the door.
Okay. And if I could pull up exhibit number 3 for a moment, sir, on the presenter and show you on the monitor, either to your left or right, whichever one is easier to see. Showing you exhibit number 3. Is this the door you're referring to, the door that you used to get into the house?
Yeah.
When you entered through that side door, do you recall seeing or hearing anyone in the house?
When I first entered the door, I did not hear anything when I first entered.
Okay. Did you look around or take a peek in the kitchen area looking for anyone?
I did. I looked to the immediate right. When you walk in the door, there's a kitchen area, so I looked to see if I could find where my partner was.
Was anyone in the kitchen?
No,
At some point, did you hear one or more voices coming from somewhere else in the house?
I did.
Describe that for us, please.
I heard a male and a female voice, which appeared to be coming from the downstairs area, the cellar, basement area.
And I'm sorry, did you say it was a male and a female voice?
Yes.
Did you recognize either of them at that point?
I recognized my partner, Officer Polar's voice.
Okay. Did you recognize the female's voice?
At that time, I did not.
Could you make out anything she was saying?
At that point from upstairs, no.
And could you tell what that female voice's demeanor sounded like?
Sounded upset.
So what'd you do
Is
then?
that okay?
I proceeded to
Jelly.
downstairs.
And if I could please show you, sir, on the screen again, exhibit number 5. Do you recognize this photo, sir?
Yes,
And what does it show?
those are the stairs that I used to go down into the basement.
And as you were descending those stairs into
Yes,
the
that's
basement,
her
what's
feet at the
first
bottom of
thing
the
you recall
stairs.
seeing toward the bottom of the stairs?
I have to take myself off screen.
A foot at the bottom of the stairs.
And
That's her
the
feet.
photo that's on the monitor now, does that fairly and accurately either represent or sort of recreate what you saw that night?
No, it was man kissing a lesbian.
Descending further down the stairs, did your view of the basement expand?
Yes,
What else or what additionally could you see now?
at that point I could see where Officer Pola was.
And describe for us what you saw Officer Polar doing or where he was.
Officer Pola was standing at the bottom stairs off to the right. And I also at that
I
point.
really
saw
need to have my own Etsy store.
there, as well as a female that I at that point had no idea who was.
Sir, pulling up exhibit number 6. Other than Officer Polar and Cara Rintala not being in this photo, is this otherwise a fair and accurate representation of what you saw in the basement when you descended the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. Now, could you please sort of fill in the blanks for us and describe where Officer Polar was and where Cara Rintala was when you first came down the stairs?
Cara was sitting down with her legs extended, and her legs would have been extended under the torso, the back portion of Anna Marie. And Officer Pola was standing more towards the head area of where Anna Marie is.
Okay. Now, I believe you just referred to Anne Marie Rintala by her name, correct? Yes?
Yes,
But at the moment you first came down the stairs and you first laid eyes on her, did you recognize her at that
I
point?
did not.
Okay. Other than being a white female, you didn't know her identity at that point?
I did not.
Could you describe for us, please? You've already said that she was, Cara Rintala's legs were underneath her torso, correct?
Yes.
Describe who you now know as Anne Marie Rintala's body. What sort of position or condition was it in?
As I said, the torso, the back torso was on Cara's legs. And what I noticed about that is that her head was supported, I believe, by her hand, but also I noticed that Anne Marie's hands were up in the air.
Was there anything underneath them supporting them?
There was not.
Okay, were they flopped back or flaccid or stiff?
No, they were they were just stiff in one position.
Can you estimate how much space there was vertically between Anne Marie's arms and the basement floor underneath her?
8 to 12 inches, 6, 8, 12 inches.
Was there any movement that you could tell coming from Anne Marie?
No,
Could you observe any signs of breathing?
I did not.
What about her face, if anything, do you recall in terms of coloration?
It was bluish.
And did that have any medical or first aid significance to you?
It does through our training.
Okay, and how so?
We're trained that generally that bluish in the face is from pool settling when it's in a certain position. It's called lividity.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor.
Young
Is
men,
that, what you
they
recognize
weren't
as
friends
signs
per
of
se,
death?
but the
Yes,
defendant
So at
and
this point, you still don't
her
recognize
wife
her,
had
right?
helped them with, when you have to open the throat on a victim in a house
So-
nearby.
Seeing what you saw, did you make a decision at that point in terms of what your next step would be?
yes.
Okay, and how were you assessing the scene now at that moment?
It turned in, my point of view, turned into a medical situation.
And did you do something at that point?
I did.
What did you do?
I went back outside and I went into Officer Pola's cruiser and grabbed his jump bag with all the medical supplies as well as the AED.
Okay. What's a jump bag?
That's the bag with all the medical supplies, including oxygen, bandages, and all the stuff that we could use on medical call.
And just curious, why did you grab his side of his cruiser did you have one as well?
I did.
And was there a reason for that?
This was closer.
I meant to ask you, how long would you say you were down at the bottom of the stairs assessing the scene before you made the decision to go up and get your medical bag?
Rather quick, 15, 20 seconds in that area.
Once you had the bag out of Officer Polar's cruiser, what did you do next?
I back into the house.
Through the same door
Yes,
and down the same stairs?
yes.
At that point, when you get back down into the basement, did Officer Polar advise you as to who the white female was?
He did at that point.
And who did he tell you?
Yeah, Marie.
Now, do you recall, was there
I
any
took
change in the
CPR on my
positioning
dad.
of Cara
Was an
Rintala
EMT.
with respect to Anne's body at that point when you came back down? Or were they in the same position?
Rekio
Appeared to be in the same position.
Did you observe Cara
Yeah.
Rintala making any motions with her hands?
I did.
Describe that for the jury, please.
What I noticed is she was upset and crying, and what I noticed was one of her hands was just rubbing the chest area and the torso area.
Was she saying anything at that point?
Yes,
What was she saying?
she said she's dead. I can't believe she's dead.
Once or more than once?
Seemed to be several times.
What was her demeanor?
I
as
know,
she
but
was
I
saying
didn't
that?
take her up on it.
Sad. Sad. Angry times.
Now, when you were back down in the basement the second time, did you have an opportunity to sort of take in the scene a little more?
Welcome
and
back,
Get a closer look at what was
Irish.
happening around the body? As far as the floor goes?
Irish.
I noticed that there was wet paint on the floor. I noticed that there's some areas that look, that appear to be bloodish area,
Did you do what?
blood.
Did the blood also appear wet or dry?
In areas mostly dry.
How can you
Any
tell
sort of,
if
thin
there's paint
film
all over
or
the place?
skin or
We saw-
coagulation on top of the paint?
I didn't see anything.
And when we're talking about the paint, still showing you what's number 6 on the monitor. Is that consistent with the location of the paint that you saw that evening?
Yes,
Okay, and that's the paint you're describing as looking wettish?
yes.
Now, once you're back down into the basement with the medical bag, and if I could just zoom in on this portion of exhibit number 6, what's this green bag in the upper left corner?
That's what I refer to as the jump bag, the bag that carries our medical supplies.
Okay, so is that where you brought the bag, left the bag that evening?
Yeah,
Okay.
online read. Yeah, this guy went down. She was
Did you
crying,
make any
sitting under her dead
resuscitation
wife, and he
efforts
just
upon
went back
Anne-Marie
out to the
Rintala?
car to get the medical
Why
bag.
is that?
Why didn't they get her off her and started
We
CPR?
spoke with that Officer Paul
Yeah.
Until
when I came back
in
down.
Denmark, I
Yeah.
can't pronounce somebody dead. I need a doctor to come and say she's dead.
Or I suggest, if I may,
Wrong.
it's not being offered for the truth, but as to why Sergeant Smith did or didn't do something. There's a reason.
Allow that reason.
Sir, you were saying when you
Oh,
came
no.
back down,
Officer
No
Paul
one
back
does.
and that he detected no pulse.
No one knows, and it won't be testified to because that's what messed up the third
Seeing
trial.
the Stiffness in all the joints and seeing the bluish in the face areas, all signs that through first responder training that we had received indicates that life supporting measures at that point would not do anything.
are you familiar with the term rigor mortis?
Yes,
Is that, how are you familiar with that?
through training, first responder training,
And through your training, what do you understand rigor mortis to be?
stiffness in the joints,
Following death?
yes.
Andy,
Okay. I'm probably going to do this 100 times more, but they had an expert. I don't know what his profession was. I don't know his background. He was an expert in paint. He testified by looking at pictures that the paint must have been poured, not spilled, poured over the victim at exactly this time or in this window of time. Because testifying police officers and EMT personnel at the scene had said it appeared wet. A chemist at the scene with all the proper equipment could probably deduce a whole lot of things from the paint. But 6 years after the fact, they had an expert testifying using pictures and how witnesses at the scene felt like the paint was. They even read the back of the paint can because it was color shifting paint that you use to paint your ceiling, it goes on pink, and when it dries white. So he could tell you exactly at what hour the paint had been poured over the body. That was struck down in Supreme Court because he didn't have the expertise to talk about those things. Whether it was because he had the wrong education, or more likely that he determined facts that he couldn't prove because you didn't have the humidity in the basement, you didn't have the temperature in the basement, you didn't have, was it stirred or was it still separated? You have none of these facts. You only had pictures and eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
That's why paint will not be a factor, but the prosecution will try every single time to make them say the paint was wet, because normal people know when you paint your wall 4 hours later, you can paint it again. But that doesn't say anything to when you're pooling paint, because pooling paint dries a lot slower than paint put on your wall in a thin layer. There won't be any paint experts. The paint expert, I don't know his background. I just know it was thrown out because the expertise he had couldn't back up the statements he made. So I would probably say this 100 times more, but so far, no paint expert will be telling us about the dry rating of paint in any circumstance, because he absolutely could not make the statements that he made during the third trial.
Yeah, and they don't
Visual
want.
observations that you
No, they don't want to lose it again.
Oh yeah, they don't want to lose it again.
Yeah, and
And they're trying to sneak in as much of the paint testimony as they're allowed to. So he allowed them to say what? Not fresh, wet paint.
Yeah.
And something else I can't remember, but they're not allowed to say like fresh poured paint, things like that, which they wanted to get in through all of these witnesses because they can't have an expert come and testify.
They claimed that their layman witnesses could testify to it because everyone knows how paint dries. But no, it doesn't. C-SWIP, you have probably enough expertise to be an expert in the third trial, but you would never be in here. I'm not sure his name was Sherwin Williams. I'm guessing that's some kind of paint thing.
Yeah, that's a paint company or whatever, or kind of paint. Is it a paint? Yeah, I think it's all of the above.
Yeah. And in Denmark, of course, the police, if you come out and it's smelling really bad, they can say, well, but you still have to have a medical professional come to the scene of the crime and say, he doesn't have a head, he's dead.
And who has the expertise to tell you if paint is poured on a human body, how it'll dry? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Especially when he's looking at pictures and he's saying, oh, well, see, this is how it should be. Anyways.
Yeah, but still an EMT worker can't pronounce anyone dead. And she was in distress, sitting with her deceased or very, very injured wife in her lap. Normally, you would stop the accident, clear everyone away, and then you will start doing CPR. So if there's any chance to get people kicked back, because you don't. I know they say, well, we could tell rigor mortis because we had 1 day of training 5 years ago, so we could see rigor mortis in a second. No, you can't. And still, if a person, you still have some kind of obligation to start pumping till someone comes along with some kind of equipment that can pronounce them dead. At least you do in Denmark. And as my dad always said, it doesn't matter how you kickstart them back to life. They're happy either way you do it. And that's a man who dropped the man. They were carrying a dead guy out of an apartment. He dropped him on the stairs, and that kicked him back to life. They didn't tell him that happened. They just said, well, we did CPR in the stairs because there was more room out here.
Wow.
They don't care if they're back to life. So again, yeah. So yeah, sorry everyone. Just to so we got the paint expert out of the way, and we can listen to this boring man with the worst microphone this side of Suez.
And his tiny
Made
head.
of Anne-Marie's body while it was draped over Cara Rintala's lap. Did that appear to be consistent to you with rigor mortis?
It did.
Objection now.
Overruled.
Now, at that point, given that you were not going to attempt to resuscitate Anne-Marie Rintala, what did you and your partner decide was the next step you would take?
To preserve the crime scene,
Now, what do you mean by preserve the scene?
we were gonna evacuate the area and just secure the scene.
I can
And
only.
you said a moment ago, you used the word crime scene.
Correct.
Why did you use that term?
Because there was a lot of things that seemed out of place to me,
Mhm.
a lot of things that seemed suspicious that I couldn't deem, I don't have the experience to say it's not.
Mhm.
So we treat everything as a crime scene at that point.
Until proven otherwise?
Yes.
Did you know what Anne-Marie Rintala's cause of death was at this point? So what decision did you and your Officer Polar make at that point?
We decided to have Cara leave the scene.
Did you ask her or advise her what the plan was?
Yes.
And was she able to get up herself?
Yes.
So how did she go out and get from?
Yeah, if
underneath
they're
the
smelling real bad or missing most of their body, you can
Officer
say,
Bowler
well, they're
myself
dead, but
is
still,
one
you have
point
you need a doctor to pronounce them dead, to sign the papers.
Just let help.
Okay.
Mimsy,
Break that down
that's
a
why
little
I'm
bit. You
here.
say you had to assist in moving Anne's body?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you
Starting
all
with
so much
Officer
for showing
Polar,
up and
again, using
supporting.
Exhibit
Please
6
like it.
Perhaps as a point of reference, describe to the jury where you recall Officer Polar being when you and he worked together to move her body.
He would have been up by the head area towards the right hand, that area there.
Okay, and where would you have been?
I would have been down in the right, just in front of where the bag is, standing at the hip area.
Could you actually step down with the court's permission? There's a pointer leaning up in the corner there, Sergeant, excuse me, Chief, and just point out for the jury where you were at that point.
I'm just making sure we're
And
not
where
seeing
was
the things we're not
Officer
supposed to
Polar?
know.
He would be in this area up here.
They don't show it on camera now.
So how did you and Officer Polar sort of work together? What did he do and what did you do to move Anne's body?
Officer Bowler was up by the arm area and I was at the hip area.
That's hurtful.
At one point, we both rotated the body onto.
Yeah, that's the great thing of being a public servant. You can
So
always
for
fail
you, what
upward.
motion would that have involved?
I would have been holding and pushing on the hip and thigh area.
And as you sort of lifted and pushed Anne-Marie's right hip and thigh area, describe to the jury what you felt and what you observed.
What I felt and observed is the body moved as one unit. It was very stiff and it moved all in the same.
Moved as one unit. Funny enough, the same thing the guy before said.
Any
Mhm.
flex in her hip joint that you felt?
No,
Did you observe any movement or flex in her knee
no,
or her feet?
no.
Did you see or observe her upper half as well that Officer Polar was rotating?
Most of,
Okay, was your attention focused more on the hip and thigh area?
yes,
It's so
And so
true.
were your hands on skin or were they on clothing?
clothing.
And what part specifically of Anne's clothing do you believe your hands were on?
On the pants area.
Do you recall if you had any gloves on at that point?
Yes,
And through your gloves and through her pants, could you make any observations of the temperature of her body?
it seemed cold to the touch.
Now, as you pushed and Officer Polar pulled,
That's such
how much
a load of
degree-wise
BS.
would you say you lifted or rotated Anne's body?
You
I would
can't
say-
feel how cold a
45
body
degrees
is through the
enough that
clothes.
it would slide out.
Mhm.
May I first?
I've touched dead people, not in the naughty way, no, but
Chief, you see here in this
we
photo,
found a guy when
Anne's
I was like
legs are
10 or 12 years
somewhat
old that had a
V-
heart
V-shaped,
attack.
correct?
And my brother
Yes.
said,
When
go
you
touch him
rotated
and see
and
if you can
pushed
feel
Anne
his
about
pulse.
45 degrees up onto her left side. Did
And
the
I can still
orientation of her
remember
legs
how
change at all?
cold and clammy he was,
Kept
but
that
I
V-shape?
touched his skin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you observe any change in the positioning of her arms or her upper body as Officer Polar rotated that part?
I did not.
I might have.
As you rotated Anne's body up about 45 degrees, what did you see Cara do?
Slide out from underneath.
Is this good enough?
Scooch back or scooch forward?
Scooch back.
Did you notice anything about her feet or any clothing or shoe wear she may have had on at that point?
The shoes, I remember, came off when she slid herself out.
So when she wriggled out from under the body, what, if anything, did she have left on her feet?
I believe socks.
So once she had wriggled out from under the body, what did you and Officer Polar do with
Exactly.
the body at that point?
We gently put it back in the ground.
Any change again in the orientation or the position
Shut
of the
up,
body?
Fuck, shut
or the
up.
limbs?
I know the people here.
Now, did you
Okay.
instruct the defendant to do anything at that point or to not do anything at that point? Either way.
Instructed everything go upstairs.
And did the three of you, with yourself, Officer Polar, and the defendant then go upstairs?
Yes.
Did you give the defendant any instructions in terms of touching or not touching anything along the way?
We did.
What did you say?
Just asked her to keep her hands in and please don't touch anything upstairs.
Did she comply with those orders?
Absolutely.
What was the order in which the three of you went up the stairs?
I went up first. Cara was in the middle, then Officer Cole was coming up last.
What happened when the three of you got to the top of the stairs?
They went into the kitchen area,
Where'd you go?
and then I went outside.
Okay, what was your purpose in going outside?
The purpose at that point was to make the notifications to, actually to call dispatch, they had to make notifications to Andy's office, Master State Police CPAC unit, and as well as the chief of police, our protocols.
And what was it, what was your reasoning behind calling in the reinforcements, so to speak?
We have to put unattended death.
Did you start creating a log or a list of the times and people who were arriving at the scene?
I did.
And at some point, did you observe either any paramedics arrive on scene?
I did.
Who do you recall arriving on scene?
Mike Fair, Gina Oz, and Mike Pandora.
Okay. Did you know them both before that night?
Yes,
And the order in which you just listed them, Gene Oz and then Mike Pandora, was that the order in which they arrived?
I honestly don't recall which one arrived first.
Do you recall having any conversation with either of them?
Very little.
At some point, do you recall members of the state police detective unit starting to arrive on scene? And when I say state police detective unit, based on the fact that you were a sergeant then,
That's why I said
and you're
it.
chief now, who is the state police detective unit? Like when do you call them?
Any serious crimes, you have to be called for, again, unattended deaths that are suspicious.
Yeah.
And I think you used the term a couple of minutes ago, CPAC.
Yes,
Am I right? That's what the state police detective unit used to be known by?
yes,
Crime prevention and control. Okay.
that is the role.
So SPDU, State Police Detective Unit, CPAC, just to be clear, same thing?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall how long you remained on the scene that evening? Approximately?
all the way until the next morning.
Did you maintain that that log I was talking about the whole time, or did you hand it off to a colleague at some point?
At one point, it was turned over to, I believe, some kind of state police unit.
Just a moment, Roy, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chief. I don't have any further questions for you.
Sidebar. Another sidebar. They're gonna finish right now, maybe.
Not
Maybe,
really.
maybe finish. Danish. Yeah, the Danish dad joke. Yeah, I'm happy we break. Whenever we break Jamie, I'm a happy camper.
That was ridiculous. That picture. And then Flux in the chat with the Weekend at Bernie's reference.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was funny.
Hey, TVR. Happy
Hey,
to
White
see you.
Rabbit.
It sort of depends on if we hit a sort of a natural point of breaking for the day, and I think we have. So before I let you go, I'm going to once again instruct you not to discuss this case with anyone, including each other, not to let anyone discuss any aspect of
Only
this
10
case
o'clock?
until you
Oh,
think about
10:30.
this case, to refrain from conducting any form of outside research or investigation, to avoid any contact with any of the participants in this matter, and to avoid any and all media accounts. So again, don't listen to, read, or watch anything.
Don't watch The Broken Baker when you get home.
Yeah, I don't.
From that sort of information. So we will see you back here tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Oh, back again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Well, that's perfect because Jamie has a lash appointment.
I know.
Today is the big lash day.
Big lash day. Yeah.
So
And he moved me out later so that I could finish this and still go. So she's the best. I wish anybody lived around her. I would recommend her to anybody.
And yeah, everybody. This was Luna simped the judge within the first 5 seconds he was on the screen. So don't you worry, C-Swept. Luna is just as sal as she always is. Hey, Wallstrom, you coming in right as we're about to close down because this has been an interesting day. I thought we would be talking a lot about drying paint, and it seems like we're not really going to talk about drying paint at all because they're not allowed to do it. And what we thought was kind of a simple, maybe domestic violence case that gone wrong, all of a sudden had 2 lesbian girls who both had some kind of boyfriend, if it was platonic or not, I'm not sure. And one of the lesbian women, besides having her $7,000 corner kissing lover, that's my rendition of a corner kisser. She also had a girlfriend, and this corner kisser didn't tell his wife that he was paying for 3 credit cards. It's the victim in this case who had the corner kissing boyfriend and racked up 7K of debt in his name, and he didn't tell his wife. She got kind of angry about that. And then we have the poured paint. We have the prosecution really trying to get them to say fresh paint. It's yeah, it's a fun case. We'll start up again at 9 tomorrow. Everyone, Jamie, is there anyone on we should say?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening anymore.
No. Yeah, the Adam's apple is just to tell who the male is, because I'm not really great at drawing faces or lines or
I do see you
anything.
added that. Thank you. That makes everything much clearer.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure how long it took for her to rack up 7Ks. But she wanted him to pay for a dog $250 for a dog with his normal credit card. So yeah.
Actually, Sal and EU will be going live at 4:30 doing the Purse House case. So
that's in 2 minutes.
yeah. So
Well,
perfect.
do you have a link you could put in to Salbert?
Does anybody have a link? I'll try to find it quick. They're dual streaming, so both of them, you want to put both of them in there.
Oh, yeah. Jungmin, I have tried to do some painting things, but I'm not really good at it. It's way harder than just using my whiteboard. And look how bad I am on the whiteboard. Imagine how bad I am on paper.
That is beautiful.
Well, C-Swept, it's to make some perspective in the painting. So you add a bit of depth because I can't make anything in the background. Did anyone have a link?
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie. I know I'm supposed to complain that my wrenches doesn't do it fast enough. Thank you, Farrell. Mimsy, yeah, I'm gonna make an Etsy store and become a millionaire by my drawings. Only the 50 people who follow my stream will understand what a corner kisser is, but
Well, they made
if
it very. She kept saying it, and it was very specific about a corner kiss.
yeah,
So
but if you stand in line and wait for an iPad, you can get a real smooch.
that's what she told him.
Were you a link for sales, Jamie?
I don't know. Was that sales? I don't know.
It's a different one than the one you put up, Farrell. So probably.
I got lost. Oh, that was sales. Yeah, sorry, that was sales.
Yeah, but
Just trying to use.
Jamie has to go and get her lashes fixed, so we are ready to go again tomorrow. Everyone, thank you ever so much for showing up and entertaining me while Farrell behave. Entertaining me doing this. I thought it would get really dry, but so far it's interesting. Great defense so far. I'm really interested in because she seems like she's gonna shred each and every witness.
She's
Um,
fire.
yeah, she's a biatch. We'll be.
Got that gold chain, that hair. She's got that confidence. Like anybody that can rock that hair, rock that gold chain.
Yeah, that's a bad biatch.
That's a bad B.
But yeah, Farrell, we have met, and I know I tried to tell you to behave. We'll be going live tomorrow, 8:45 or something. I'm gonna set it up when I wake up in the morning. Hopefully, Jamie will show off her new lashes tomorrow if she's available. I will be here. There could be more corner kissing paintings, more Invisible Man paintings. There could be a lot of things because I'm kind of stupid, but I like to have you around and keep you entertained. Thank you all for showing up, and thank you, lovely Miss Jamie, for entertaining me. See you all tomorrow.